The Detroit Pistons shocked everyone and took Ron Holland with pick 5 in the 2024 NBA draft. We'll talk about the pick as well as some other things in just a moment.
Lane, skies a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves it.
Welcome back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. You can also follow us over on Instagram at Pistons_Intellect. And if you're feeling so kind, as always, please hit that subscribe button. NBA draft was today. I've just gotten home after covering the draft for the NBL, where we had Alex Sarr and AJ Johnson both selected in the first round. So huge moment for the league and the company or the league I work for. So that was really cool to cover the draft from that point of view. But the reason you're all here is to talk about the Pistons and to talk about the newest Piston, Ron Holland, out of the G League Ignite. Coming into the day, no mock drafts, or none of the major mock drafts had Holland at 5 to the Pistons. Most predicted a trade back, or if they weren't trading back, there was names like Klingon, Bazelis, Cody Williams, even I'm forgetting the French teenager's name. My bad. It's been a huge day for me. Saloon. He was another name. But no, the Pistons took Ron Holland, and I was shocked. I will be honest, this episode is just going to be like pretty much my raw reaction for the main thing. So I'm going to go through a heap of Holland tape tonight and across the weekend and really get a really in-depth feel for his game. But I must admit, I was pretty excited. Holland wasn't that high on my board, but that's because I kind of had players like Shepherd, Klingon, a little bit higher who were more known quantities. But Holland was a guy who was number one entering this draft cycle. He's a guy that, as you can see, averaged 20 points a game, 7 boards, 3 assists, 44% from the field, 2.5 steals, high motor, high impact, athletic wing. The huge concern with him is the jumper. He only shot 24% from 3. So I understand why some fans are upset with that. But I think in terms of an upside swing, I really like Ron Holland. Like I'm probably just on a bit of a draft high in the sense of it, for me, draft day is always so exciting. And for the most part, I'll always get excited about whoever the Pistons pick, especially when it's this high in the draft. So, I've tweeted out some highlights. He's a very exciting player. And you just have to love the passion and motor he plays with. Like, yes, he's mistake prone. Yes, he can be a little bit erratic, but you can't deny the energy and hustle. And I know we need much more than that to start winning games. But I think the way I'm looking at this pick, and kind of, to be honest, towards the end, in the past couple of weeks, the way I was looking at whoever the Pistons draft, I started to just focus on it through a lens of no matter what in their rookie season, I don't want them to be relied upon. I don't want Ron Holland to be a starter in his rookie season, unless he absolutely deserves it. But I don't want him starting. I think he can be clearly a starter long term. But the more I've come to that mindset of like, all right, this isn't the Kay Cunningham draft where day one they need to start because you're in year 2 of a rebuild. I know the rebuild's going horribly wrong, but part of the reason for this rebuild going horribly wrong is because there's been way too much of a reliance on raw 18, 19-year-olds like Jalen Duren, like Asar Thompson, like Jaden Ivey to an extent. Not every draft pick is mature like Cade, who even had his struggles as a rookie. So I think that's why I'm excited about this pick and why I'm okay with taking a high upside swing at the beginning of this sort of off season. I was more in the camp of only taking ready-made prospects. I've come to change my mind, and I'm happy to admit that I've changed my mind because this draft has been so crazy. So I think Holland as a prospect, I just gave you some stats then. I think, like I said, his size and athleticism, 6'7", 6'8" on a good day. 6'11" wingspan, really good vertical. Needs to put on weight, but pretty strong for a rookie. And really good at driving to the basket and putting pressure on the rim. And look, the jumper, like I said, it needs work, but the Pistons have probably the best shot doctor in the league right now in Fred Vinson. And Trajan Langdon cited that. He said, where can I see that? Langdon said he was one of the highest upsides in the draft. We hired Fred Vinson for a reason, to take chances like this. If his shot hits, he's going to be a real player. And it's hard to disagree with that. And I can see the line of thinking here, because for Langdon, this is his first draft in control of the Pistons. This is somewhat his guy. So he might be looking at Asar Thompson differently to how we are. He might be looking at Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey completely different to how Troy Weaver had. Those guys now, it becomes a question. So the Pistons have, if we just look at their kind of lottery picks in the past 4 years, they have Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, Ron Holland. Now, did I say Cade? Anyway, Cade's fine. He's his own thing. But those last four, Ivey, Holland, Duren, and Asar, none of them are shooters. Ivey's probably the closest, but it's going to be really interesting to see how Langdon views those other three guys taken in the past two drafts, because, you know, when you just look at it, they don't fit together, these parts. Now, you might want to say, well, next season it might be okay because you can bring two off the bench, you can play two. But it's going to be like, I'm kind of going to be very, very surprised if the Pistons head into next season with Duren, Ivey, Holland, Asar all in the roster. Now, I think Holland, because of where he's been selected and he's Langdon's pick, I kind of think he's a little bit higher than Asar maybe in the pecking order. But Langdon did go out of his way to kind of mention that you can't have too many elite defenders. And he was talking about Holland and Asar and their potential fit. And like I said, Langdon in the past has drafted guys like Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, both big wings that can defend. Now, obviously, Holland and Asar don't have jump shots like those two, so that's the huge, huge question there. But Langdon did bring across the guy who helped fix Herb's shot. Trey Murphy was already a good shooter. So you can see Langdon's thinking there. I've got the best shooting coach in the NBA coming across to help my guys fix their jumper. So you can see the vision there. How much better Vincent can get these guys jumpers is a question, because Asar Thompson is one of the worst jump shooters in the league. And Ron Holland, if he's anything like his play at G League, isn't much better. So I get the concerns there. I get why fans might be let down. But for right now, and right now, I'm happy with the pick, because I think Holland's a high pedigree guy. And yeah, I kind of love his attitude. I'm not going to lie. He said a couple of things that I really liked. He said just something like, we lost a lot last season. He's already talking about the Pistons like as we. He said, we lost a lot last season, but the guys never gave up. He said, I'm really excited to turn this thing around. Just small quotes, but you love to hear it. And the funny thing was, he didn't work out with Detroit. He had no idea the Pistons were taking him. And I think Langdon later said that it was a bit of a smokescreen not to have him in for a workout and to kind of throw teams off like they clearly did, because all the intel was that the Pistons were trading back. So, yeah, I don't have a whole lot more. I'm happy with the pick. I'm really excited to see Holland in 2 weeks' time at the Summer League. I think he's a guy who could really show out there and actually put up some big numbers. So I think just from a fan and entertainment perspective, that's going to be really fun to watch. And yeah, that's kind of my immediate thoughts. I'm more keen to hear your guys' thoughts. And yeah, I'm just super excited to dive into some tape now. Now that I know who the Pistons have taken, and a guy like Holland who showed a lot in the G League, good and bad, I'm super, super excited to go and look at the good, the bad, and where he's going to improve as a rookie. So yeah, too early to say big tick for Langdon or not. I think I'm happy with the pick, but I'm not, I don't think Holland should be starting next Cade Cunningham opening night next season. So we'll see. But let me know your thoughts. Moving on, there's a couple of other things I just want to hit on before we get out of here. So no trades. So like I said multiple times, the Pistons are expected to trade back and kind of take on assets and that kind of thing based off what Langdon said. But Langdon actually said when asked about this, because obviously the Pistons didn't make any trades, some fans are curious why the Pistons didn't try and take advantage of the Memphis Grizzlies, who were trying to move up to get Klingon and that kind of thing. But ultimately, Pistons didn't do that trade. And Langdon, when asked, kind of said, because obviously he said at his presser, the Pistons are going to look to take on contracts and assets. And his response in the press conference tonight was, we have cap space. We're getting calls. We want future assets more than picks in this draft. So it sounds like from that, what I'm going to take from that is that Langdon, the only kind of offers they were getting tonight, maybe they just were really set on getting Ron Holland. And maybe they were worried that if they trade back, they won't get him. But in unison with that, I've taken from this, it feels like the Pistons might have only been getting offered picks in this draft. Langdon's clearly, this isn't a great draft. Yes, there will be good players, but on the whole, this probably isn't a draft that you're looking to get a whole heap of picks in. And like I mentioned last episode, like the Pistons can't bring in like 2-3 first round picks this draft, because when you go look, they already have like 6 to 7 other young players, including Holland, on this roster. So they've got a lot of guys on rookie contracts. They need to figure out what they're going to do. And just to bring in another first rounder potentially in this draft that's going to command some form of guaranteed salary, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. So it feels like they're going to be looking for future picks, which I kind of do like, because future drafts are going to have more value than this draft, future draft picks, that is. So it feels like that's clearly not as much of a draft night play. The assets, that's going to be obviously something that plays out over free agency and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to address that, that Langdon provided that clarification that the Pistons, yes, they're still looking to bring on contracts, and yes, they're still looking to do it as a way to get future assets. But as he said, they're looking at future picks in future drafts as opposed to the 2024 draft. Now, final thing I want to close out on here is the news we got just before the draft. And this is a little bit of a shock, but Nick Claxton has re-signed with the Brooklyn Nets for 4 years, $100 million. And that was reported by Woj. And yeah, bit of a shock this one. After Malik Monk going to the Kings, I truly kind of felt like Claxton was going to be a Piston, but obviously he's not. I kind of expected the Pistons to offer 4 years, $100 million. So if to get Nick Claxton, it was going to cost more than 4 years, $100 million, I'm kind of think I'm okay. I don't think Nick Claxton's worth more than $25 million a season. So as much as I was kind of hoping to get him to help shore up the Pistons defense on the interior, at the same time, I think paying any more than what the Nets have paid would have been quite the overpay, and something that maybe not next year or the year after I would be worried about, but years 3 and 4, maybe that contract's not looking as good. So like from what I had read, the Nets were originally offering like 4 years, $80 million. So maybe interest from the Pistons and other teams drove that price up for the Nets, and they clearly want to bring back Claxton, who still hasn't hit his prime. So whilst I'm a little bit, disappointed the Pistons weren't able to make this happen, at the same time, I'm not sure I would have liked to seen the Pistons signing Nick Claxton for 4 years, $120 million, $130. That might have been a bit steep for a center who doesn't really shoot, who is a very good rim protector. But I think that's just the way it goes. Sometimes the Nets obviously heavily invested in keeping him. So not a whole lot you can do here if you're the Pistons. It just now makes free agency that much more interesting. As I said, Malik Monk will not be a Piston. Nick Claxton will not be a Piston. Both of those guys have re-signed with their teams. Both of those guys, I thought one of them would at least end up on the Pistons. But as some people said to me in the comments, Jack, why are people going to sign with the worst team in the league? So I can't really argue with that. But either way, I kind of thought they were a little bit realistic. So a bit disappointing, but is what it is. I think that's going to do for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow for my usual Pistons Intellect Friday show. Obviously, we'll recap the draft overall. I'll probably have a bit more on Ron Holland. But yeah, this is just my immediate reaction. As always, appreciate all the support, all the growth the channel is kind of going through at the moment. This has been really fun. I hope you all had a really fun draft night. And as I said, would love to hear your thoughts on Ron Holland. But until tomorrow, as always, go Pistons.